This story is all about what if Naruto had different versions of himself. A modification of the seal holding back the Kyuubi has surprising consequences. When each choice brings about a new world, what will happen when different possibilities collide? Many Naruto wreaking havoc. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard! Chapter 9, Last Days. Sakura entered the great hospital without a word. The secretaries ignored her, and she ignored them. The girl wasn't even masking her sadness. Her fake smile was nowhere to be seen. She went through the stairs, and stopped. Hokage was talking to a medic, behind a slightly open door. She observed them discreetly. Arsenic? The Sandaime squinted, as he read a sheet of paper. She has been poisoned? The doctor nodded. We've found traces of toxic substances in her bloodstream. The diagnostic shows that the patient has, unknowingly, absorbed small doses of various chemical agents over a long period of time, probably through her food. The old man closed his eyes. So, it's an assassination. Yes. Her daughter was probably targeted as well, but we think her accelerated healing gave her immunity to most poisons, saving her life. The Sandaime frowned gravely. I will have my forces investigate. This crime cannot stay unpunished. Sakura didn't listen anymore. She continued to walk through the white corridors, until she reached her mother's room. The girl opened the door silently. Mom, she whispered. I'm back. No response. Sakura approached the bed, where her mother Saya was resting. The woman looked at her, with an empty gaze. Her hair was now white, and she seemed to as old as the Hokage. Sakura. She lifted her hand. The girl smiled, and took it. I am here, Mom. I will always be with you. Sakura. The sufferer trailed off. Am I a good mother? Yes, her daughter answered with tears in her eyes. The woman seemed partially sane, and the girl wondered how long it would last. The madness had claimed her for weeks, and Sakura hoped she would recover one day, even if the doctors had said she wouldn't. The children, that insulted you. They stopped. Sakura lied. She didn't want her mother's state to worsen. Her last crisis had been terrifying and made her bleed. She had even tried to strangle herself, possessed by her own insanity. The woman grinned, at peace. You see, your smile can win everyone's love. Her face suddenly twisted into a serious expression. Monster, you destroyed me. What? Sakura gasped. Her mother was now squeezing her hand with the little force she had left in it. You ruined my life. Saya hissed, as her eyes glittered with insanity. I could have been happy, but you stole my daughter's face and body. Mom, the girl whispered. You're scaring me. Had her madness taken over, once again? You should have died that day, demon. Her mother shrieked. I should have strangled you when you were reborn in Sakura's body, none of this would have happened. I should have killed you. Sakura repressed her tears. You don't believe what you say, that's the madness that talks, not you, Mom. The woman laughed. An empty, cold, and forced laugh. What do you know of truth, Kyuubi? Are you so used to lie that you do not recognize the reality of my words? The Kyuubi? Sakura asked, not understanding her mother's gibberish. Gibberish. I tried to love you. The madwoman cried. I sacrificed my life, my reputation, for you, and now I'm paying the price for this mistake. Disappear. She ordered her daughter, as she released her hand. Vanish from my sight. But Mom dash. Be gone. The woman shrieked, and her daughter fled in terror. Who would love a monster beside itself? Sakura heard her mother scream and cry. Who would love a monster? She roared, as the doctors came to restrain her. The next time Sakura would see her mother was for the latter's funeral. The genin opened her eyes. She had left the hospital for Tazuna's house. Nightmare? Sakura's face tilted to her side to where Sasuke was sitting on the floor. The girl had no idea why did he care, but nodded nonetheless. The Uchiha frowned. Seemed to be a bad one. You heard me? She asked. Well, you really sounded really out of it. He answered. But I think I'm the only one that noticed. Naruto is already taking his breakfast. I see. The girl muttered. Why does my dream interest you? Because you were talking in your sleep, Sasuke said. I heard the words arsenic and madness. Most nightmares don't have those things in them. She glared at him. It doesn't concern you. It was a very sensitive subject. I don't want to talk about it. The boy weathered her glare, unfazed. I understand. It's just... He gritted his teeth. If you ever want someone to hear you, I am here. Thank you, Sakura smiled. But I don't think it will be necessary. The Uchiha glanced at her. Hiding your pain behind a false grin won't make it go away. I know, she said. I figured that out long ago. Since her first day at the academy, in fact, the very day parents had ordered their children to ignore her. Then why do you keep the lie alive? Sasuke asked her. Why don't you express your real personality instead of a fake one? Because I can't, she answered. It's been done so many times that I can't stop acting like that. After wearing a mask for too long, it's become my real face. It's natural to wear it now. In a way it's harder to take off than to put on, even in front of you, Naruto, and Sensei. The Uchiha nodded. Since we're on this subject, when are you going to make a pass at him? Sakura chuckled sadly. Is it that obvious? No, he replied. You're a lot more discreet and subtle than Hinata, but after spending some time with you two, I've noticed how you seemed more nervous than normal around him. Your reaction simply confirmed it. I am pathetic, aren't? She whispered. I'm not even able to ask a guy out. Sasuke shook his head. You're not pitiable. In fact, I think that you are too afraid of being rejected. He's a nice guy. Invite him on a date, and he won't refuse. He stood up on his legs. If you want, I can even help you. Really? Sakura watched him, mesmerized. How? The boy smirked. It's a secret. Sasuke. Sakura has a crush on you. The blonde's face was priceless, in Sasuke's humble opinion. At first, he looked as if he had been punched in the balls. Then, he paled. Then, horror spread over his visage. Then, he stared at his black-haired friend with empty eyes. You are joking, please tell me you're joking. Not at all, the genin replied, with amusement in his tone. She wants to ask you out. She admitted it herself. Naruto sat on a chair and massaged his temples. It's impossible. Sakura is crushing on me? The Uchiha snorted. His friend truly was dense. He only recognized attraction when he was stalked by an obsessive fangirl. Hinata is crushing on you, so why not Sakura? The blonde glared at him. You don't understand. I have always been nice to Hinata, so it didn't surprise me when I discovered her use of the Byakugan to observe me. Sasuke scoffed at the euphemism. But I never talked to Sakura before she joined the team. Heck, the first time I spoke with her was to argue with her in a spar. The Uchiha lifted his shoulders, shrugging. What can I say? She loves you. He eyed his friend emotionlessly. What are you going to do about it? I don't know. The boy answered. Sasuke frowned. What do you mean by I don't know? A friendly, cute girl is only awaiting a sentence to fall in your arms. Like Hinata, Naruto snapped. Her parents would never allow her to date you, Sasuke pointed out. They would rather put the caged bird seal on her forehead than allow this princess to be kissed by a clanless orphan like you. Sakura is free, less clingy, and very mature for her age, if you ignore her choice for dress and lack of interest for academic matters. Why are you hesitating? Why are you pushing this, Sasuke? Because it's my duty as loyal teammate to make both of you happy, or miserable. He explained. That, and I think Sakura has issues. Even more than us. The blonde cast him a questioning look. The genius sighed. As much as she tries to hide it, deep down, she is unhappy. She is good at hiding her problems, but they still exist. She is pretty much convinced that no one really likes her. Having a boyfriend might make her revise her opinion. Naruto stayed silent a moment. I will do it. Asking her out, I mean. Good. Now, move your ass and get to work. Actually. He grinned sheepishly. What am I supposed to tell her? The Uchiha stayed silent. You don't know? No answer. I think Kakashi-sensei is my only solution. Sasuke's eyes opened wide. You are going to ask relationship advice to a guy spending all his days reading porn? In front of kids? Yes. Silence. I have a bad feeling about it, the Uchiha muttered. The Ice Princess, Haku. Haku carefully picked up the herbs which she needed to prepare her teacher's ointment. The fake hunter Nin was disguised as a civilian, but she had kept a few Senbon hidden in her pockets just as a precaution. Hopefully, she wouldn't use them, but with Gato's thugs around, while she hadn't assisted to their extortion attempts, it was common knowledge in town that the local law enforcement tended to pay themselves with more than just money. Fortunately, their number had considerably dropped these days. If Kimimaro was to be believed, Gato's men were getting exterminated by a trio of killers, probably members of that Erasure family. In fact, most of the businessman's hired muscles were beginning to desert in large numbers. Their employer now only had a quarter of the staff he had before Tezuna's return, and if the murderous spree was to continue, he wouldn't have any helpers left at all, except Zabuza's gang. Haku didn't like to kill, and even less working for Gato, but her master's orders were absolute. She thought they were dishonoring themselves by serving a tyrant, even if he was paying them a lot. Money earned through such terrible deeds was worthless in the girl's eyes, a point of view Kimimaro had criticized. We are ninja, he had told her. By becoming warriors, we have corrupted ourselves, and purity will be forever beyond our reach. You are far too soft for your own good, Haku. She knew her fellow apprentice was right. The girl would have been better as a healer than as a shinobi, but she was a Yuki, a Hayatan user. Her bloodline had denied her a peaceful future, and Zabuza had showed her the light among the darkness of the ninja world. She would do anything he wanted her to, even if she had to kill her heart in the process. Of course, they were still weary of Gato. The man had shown himself as a greedy, egoistical coward who would do everything to save money. Kimimaro expected him to betray them soon, but as long as the businessman hadn't made a move against them, they simply obeyed. He might not even stab them in the back at all, after her and Kimimaro's display of their abilities. As she looked out for herbs under a tree, Haku noticed something moving near her. Approaching while preparing to attack at the first sign of danger, the kunoichi discovered another girl sleeping on the grass. She was blonde, and was wearing an orange outfit. She was younger than Haku. Has she lost her way to the town? The young lady wondered. I know this forest is quite dense, but... Hey, the kunoichi whispered to the unconscious girl's ears. You are going to catch a cold if you sleep here for too long. The blonde yawned softly. What? She looked up at Haku. Where am I, and who are you? The fake hunter Nin smirked. You are in the forest, and I'm called Haku. Uzumaki Naruto. The girl moaned as she sat up, massaging her temples. I should have known better than waking up early. Naruto-sensei is going to be so mad at me. Sensei? Haku's eyes flashed with surprise. Are you a ninja? She asked, trying to test her intuition. Well, yeah. Naruto said, as she rose up. I would have woken up early to train more, but I guess I needed more sleep than I expected. She smiled at the kunoichi. Thanks for doing it for me, Haku-san. It's nothing, the fake hunter Nin replied, giving her best smile. So, she is an enemy. I should have guessed it sooner. She matches Zabuza-sama's description perfectly. Ho, you're picking herbs? The blonde asked, as she pointed her finger at Haku's basket. The kunoichi nodded. It's for a friend that is ill. Hopefully, she wouldn't make the connection. Naruto smirked. You know what, I think I can help you. What kind of plant do you need? That's very nice of you. Haku thanked her. I only need this kind of herb. I will get them in no time. The girl shouted, as she executed a technique. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The kunoichi gasped, mesmerized, as at least 100 of blondes suddenly appeared in the clearing, all exact copies of the original. They all began to wander through the forest, picking herbs along the way. In less than 5 minutes, Haku's basket was full. The astonished kunoichi managed to blurt out a thank you to the clone crowd. It's nothing. They all shouted. That's Uzumaki Naruto for you. The clones popped into smoke, leaving only the original, smiling at Haku. Happy to have helped you. Akane. The furious call resonated through the clearing. The blonde paled and glanced sideways. Oh crap, Naruto-sensei is as mad as hell. She locked eyes with Haku. Sorry, but I have to flee. If he finds me now dash. I'm already here, an irritated voice whispered to her ears. Haku's experienced eyes easily noticed the shunshin, even before the user appeared behind Naruto. The newcomer was a young teenager of her age that looked like an older, male version of the blonde girl, wearing an orange cloak above a black shirt and purple pants. The kunoichi had to admit it, he was rather handsome even if his face was currently stern and emotionless. Naruto-sensei. Naruto trailed off. I am so sorry. I hope you have a good excuse for your absence, he grunted, and noticed Haku. It was brief, but the kunoichi saw the teenager's shocked face when he locked eyes with her. It seemed as if he had seen a ghost. He quickly corrected his expression, but it was enough for Haku. He knows me, she thought. Or at least someone resembling me. The teenager's next reaction surprised her, however. He grinned and stared at Naruto with a knowing look. So that's your reason for waking up early? You were on a date with a pretty citizen of Wave? Both Naruto and Haku gasped at the statement, and both reddened a bit. That's completely false. The blonde yelled. And we are both girls, the fake hunter Nin added. This seemed to throw the teenager out of tracks. He gasped, eyed Haku for a short time, and opened his mouth in amazement. You're a girl? The reaction angered the kunoichi. He thought I was a boy? Of course. Haven't you noticed the lack of Adam apple? Or the breasts? The teenager stayed without voice, completely shocked, before smirking. So, you're into girls, Akane? He asked the blonde mirthfully, probably to hide his mistake. Haku wondered why he used that name. Was it an alias? Naruto blushed. No, I'm not, jerk-sensei. You can admit it, I don't discriminate. And she is very pretty. Haku reddened slightly at the statement. Sensei! She yelled, infuriated, as the teenager began to laugh. I'm joking, he said, still grinning. So, who is your new friend? I am Haku, the kunoichi presented herself. Kazama Erasure, at your service, he replied with a friendly smile. Haku frowned. It is the ninja that had defeated Zabuza-sama, through dirty tricks and sheer luck, she realized. I must stay on my guard. I don't have any water nearby, so he has a decisive advantage if he ever recognizes me and attacks. I thought your name was Naruto, she pointed out. You are mistaken, he responded, glaring sideways at Naruto. My sister Akane loves to give strange names to those she likes. So, they do use aliases. But why would they do that, unless Uzumaki, the pieces of the puzzle soon assembled together. They are members of the Uzumaki clan. That's why we don't have any info on them. They must be careful at destroying every data that could bring the attention of the hidden villages on them. She understood their need for secrecy very well. Their clan, like her own, had been hunted down to near extinction for their power, and every nation would want to capture them to unravel the secret of their bloodline, and of their sealing art, except Konoha. Perhaps that was why they had come to Kakashi's rescue? Because they had an alliance with the Leaf? That would explain the presence of a Jinchuriki among them. The Warfox was the Kyuubi's container. Anyway, what a cute girl like you is doing in the woods at this hour? Kazama asked. Picking up herbs, Haku replied. A friend of I is ill, and needs medications. So dear Zabuza hasn't fully recovered, yet. Perhaps tomorrow? The teenager's tone was friendly, but the words shattered the fake Hunter Nin's composure. The kunoichi paled. Naruko's eyes widened. Acting quickly, Haku prepared herself to defend her life, taking Tsusenbon in her fingers. The teenager simply raised his palm in a peaceful gesture. Relax, I want to talk, not to kill you. Haku's body stayed on alert. How did you guess? She asked, ignoring Naruko's horrified expression. I know, that is all, he answered, his smirk widening. I am aware of your bloodline, Haku, and of your story. The info was simply there to reduce the kunoichi's confidence. How could he? You spied on my group, didn't you? So, they really expected our coming. Not at all, Kazama replied. But I must admit that your team interests me. Haku, Naruko muttered. You work for Kisame and Zabuza? The girl frowned, before nodding. I was one of the fake Hunter Nin, she responded honestly. If that Uzumaki was so well informed, denying the truth served no purpose. And she wasn't a good liar. Your masquerade was quite convincing, Kazama declared. I wonder why ninjas as powerful as you are working for a small fry like Gato. Perhaps is it to finance a coup against the Mizukage? Haku blinked. Mist is in the middle of a civil war. The Mizukage rule is already fragile. The rebellion against the tyrant Yagura will grow in strength. When Zabuza-sama shows up with funds to help the opposition, his reputation will be cleaned, and he will be acclaimed as a hero, if not as the Godei Mizukage. So, you are helping a despot to topple another? The teenager asked. Seems a bit hypocritical to me. The life of ninja is a dark existence, the girl said regretfully. Sacrifices have to be made, and we have to kill our heart for the greater good. He locked eyes with her. You don't believe any word you're saying. It wasn't a question, merely a fact. No, she admitted. But there is no other way. Kazama shook his head. I can give you one. I have a proposition for your group. She stared at him, raising her eyebrows questioningly. You want us to betray Gato? She guessed. Yes, he stated. Though since he is going to betray you first, it shouldn't really a problem. Haku stiffened. What do you mean? Gato doesn't intend to pay you. He will send thugs to kill you after our fight, when you will be at your weakest. The vile vermin. They had already planned for a treachery, and the ninja might be lying, but... How much is he paying you for assassinating Tazuna? He asked. 20 million Rio. We will pay you 50 million to abandon this mission and Gato, even more if you want. We will pay you the same amount for a secondary job. This ticked Haku's interest. If this teenager wasn't lying, then the money would be 5 times more than they would obtain under Gato. What kind of job? 3 powerful missing Nins are after us, Kazama explained. They are solid S rank, probably Kage level, and want to capture or kill us. We managed to escape their grasp once, but they will return. We are seeking help anywhere. Haku frowned. Why didn't you ask Konoha for help? Because they attacked us in Konoha. The girl couldn't believe her ears. What kind of shinobi would have the guts to strike in the middle of a hidden village, unless he was working for them? That would explain why they are hiding. If they were traveling with the Kyuubi's container, then they must have stolen him from the leaf. No wonder why they sought the help of missing Nins, but why were they working with Kakashi? Too much questions were still unanswered. I see. I will talk to my masters about your offer. They will consider it. Good, the other nodded. Tomorrow morning, we will await you at the bridge. Either you accept our proposition, or you attack. And really, you should consider our offer. It's for your own good. The destroyer, Susanoo. It was raining above the coasts, like all days. The clouds were advancing toward the sea, abnormally fast. The water contained inside of them was moved around, controlled by an almost godlike will. From the top of a mountain, Susanoo rejoiced. This technique was formidable. This is incredible. The Uchiha informed his comrades. I can sense the chakra of anyone touching the rain. My eyes can observe a whole country, and nobody is aware of it. Nagato's rain tiger at will technique was his way of achieving omniscience, Tsukiyomi confirmed, as he looked at the clouded skies. In rain, he was basically aware of everything happening. When he moved the weather in another country, he could locate our targets easily. If you successfully master this jutsu, then you should be able to find our prey and his helpers anywhere. We lost their track in the ocean, Amaterasu said. Try to scan the islands. Of course, the man with the Rinnegan replied evenly. As soon as I discover their hideout, we will teleport nearby. And this time, Tsukiyomi continued, there will be no escape for them. The werfox, Kitsune. Naruto Uzumaki, also known as Kitsune Erasure, opened his eyes. The boy was completely groggy, and passably tired. The voices were silent, and he felt at peace. At least, until he realized he was lying next to 2 dismembered corpses. Jerking, the boy rose up, and discovered, much to his horror, that his clothes were stained with blood. He was near the sea, on a cliff. He looked down at the cadavers, and remembered what he had done last night. He was chasing his prey through the streets, hunting them and savoring their fear. They were shrieking, they were afraid, and he was hungry. And it's so easy when you're crazy. He sang happily. This is the life, you see. He cornered them in a blind alley. They turned around, their faces shivering in terror. The Kyuubi tips his hat to me. Get away! One of them shouted, menacing the werfox with a knife. The creature roared, and bit the man in the face, drawing the wonderful, crimson nectar from his forehead. His fangs continued to shred bones apart, leaving the survivor watching the spectacle, terrorized. When Kitsune gazed avidly at the flesh bag, he smelled the man pissing himself. "Please," he begged, crying. "I'll do anything. I do it all because I'm crazy." The werfox barked happily. He advanced toward his prey, who was paralyzed by the killing intent emanating from the beast. "And I do it all for free." Kitsune began to lick his toy's face lovingly, tasting the delicious liquid. "Your tears are all the pay I'll ever need." He opened his mouth, and the man screamed. Disgusted by the vivid memories, Kitsune put his hands on his head. The voices were satisfied for now, asleep in the back of his mind. But they would awaken again, they would force him to kill again, they would force him to bear the guilt again, the murders, the deaths, the hunts, and the games would begin anew, making the world more unbearable again. But the pain would never go away. Unless... The boy looked at the cliff. From the height, a jump would be fatal, even to his cursed bestial body. He would crash on the rocks below, freeing the earth from his evil existence. He would finally be free from his bloodlust, from the voice's insane and destructive will. But something prevented him from committing suicide. A vision of his family mourning him. He saw Naruto crying, Shibaku and Kazama burying him, Sasori looking emotionlessly at his corpse, shedding a single tear. He saw his funeral, the cries, the sadness. His suicidal impulses were annihilated by this picture of his future. Kitsune had finally found happiness in his dark and empty life. He absolutely refused to let the voices win. He would continue to fight them, to resist them, until the day he would be strong enough to beat them. "Hey kid?" He blenched. Turning around, Kitsune saw a creature jumping at him. Falling on the ground, the boy struggled, but the thing was too big and too strong for him. It looked like a mass of blue scales, with a big mouth thrown in the middle. It opened, revealing sharp teeth and a large tongue. That licked him. The werfox in human form was astonished as the creature's tongue touched his face, again and again. It barked happily. "Calm down, Samahata," a deep voice said. "You're scaring him." The animal backed down, and Kitsune saw a towering figure watching over him and offering him a hand. "Are you okay, little fish?" "Yeah," the boy answered, as the man helped him rising up. It was a large man, wearing a black outfit and bandages over all his skin. Only his face was partially visible, and he was smirking. "Sorry, Samahata can be really affectionate." "It's nothing," the boy said, as he caressed the thing, which purred. The man smiled. "She seems to like you. It's very rare, you know." Kitsune grinned sheepishly. "I have a gift for animals." The man laughed. "More than just the animals, apparently." He looked at the two cadavers. Who were they? Seeing the boy frown, the bandaged guy smirked. "Let me guess, they tried to rob you, and you showed them who was boss." "Maybe," the werfox in human form declared. "Honestly, I don't remember." The man blinked. "What do you mean?" "Well..." He trailed off. "Sometimes, I kind of lose it, without reasons. I black out, and I awake amongst dead people." Why was he even telling that? It wasn't something to discuss with an unknown person. The bandaged guy nodded, eyeing him with a thinly veiled interest. "Before you black out, do you feel like an irresistible force wants you to kill everything on sight?" "Yeah." He nodded. "When you lose your head, do you suddenly do exploits you could dream to do normally? Do you find yourself immune to pain?" "Well, yes." How did he know that? The man smirked. I know what your problem is, kid. He looked down at Kitsune. You're a berserker. A what? A berserker. They're people born with a bloodlust that can never be repressed. When they're angered, their strength increases to superhuman levels and they don't feel pain anymore. Why they exist is a mystery, but they're damn strong. They're well known in Kiri. Hell, one of my friends is one. And you think I'm a berserker? Kitsune asked. Maybe. Until I see one of your rages, I can't confirm it, but I think you're one. An untrained kid like you normally can't kill these two guys as savagely as you did. He touched his chin with his fingers. If you're really a berserker, you will need to train in mastering your anger. Once it's done, you will be unstoppable. Controlling his bloodlust? That would be great, but how am I supposed to tame my anger? By meditating, the man answered. Stay away from society, live in the nature, sleep next to the water. You must learn to be at peace, in harmony with what surrounds you. Kind of like all that crap they show in action movies. That's how bears keep their calm most of the time. The bloodlust is alimented by inner turmoil. Once it is solved, the anger stops to control you, and with enough practice you will even be able to trigger it at will. Thank you very much for the advices, Kitsune bowed. Mr. The name is Kisame Hashigake, he declared. And excuse me, but I must leave. I have to go to bed, since I'm going to kick some asses tomorrow. The man looked down at the boy. What's your name? Naruto Uzumaki, he answered honestly. Since the guy was so nice, and that the demon vessel doubted he would ever see him again, it was normal to be honest with him. I will remember it, Kisame said, as he left with his animal following him. See you next time, little fish. Goodbye. Kitsune shouted. Truly, this man seemed to be Gria. The demon vessel paled. He had just realized who the guy was. The boy had just befriended the shark man that had almost devoured him. He didn't move at all, paralyzed by the realization. Hey, Kitsukuen? You're feeling good? When he returned to reality, Kitsune found himself in front of Chibaku. The puppeteer smirked at him. It's all right? You look like someone who had just been dumped by his girlfriend. Ah, the boy stammered. It's nothing. Good, he stared at the two cadavers. Who, you took them with you? Damn, your werfox form surely loves its toys. Not that I'm going to feel sorry for them. You knew them? You don't remember? Chibaku asked. They worked for Gato. We hunted them down last night together with Sasori. We killed so many of them that I've literally lost the count. You mean I did that on purpose? Kitsune couldn't believe his own ears. Well, more or less, the boy in green answered. You were already out for blood at sunset, so we only pointed you at the most evil target Sasori and I could find, aka Gato's thugs. I don't know why, but you ended your killing spree with these two before disappearing. Killing spree? The boy repeated fearfully. They aren't my only victims? You currently have a 2-digit thug count, Chibaku answered. No big deal, you only attacked the bar where Gato's men were drinking. The barman simply ran the tail between his legs. I'm sure the last innkeeper we saw had spread the word about our habits. I did the right thing? Well, you did a favor to the universe, the boy replied, putting his hand on Kitsune's shoulder. Don't worry too much about it. So Kazama-san's words were exact, the boy thought. If I'm forced to kill, then I can clean this world from the corrupt and the wicked. Kakashi. Kakashi blinked. You want to ask a girl out? His student nodded. Sasuke was passively observing the scene. Their teacher was sweating. So it finally arrived. Kids, I am going to give a very important lesson today. Sit on the grass with me. They obeyed, ready to listen to their master's wisdom. The background was especially appropriated, a clearing under a big tree. The sage began to talk. When a boy and a girl love each other very much, well, they try to know each other, if you know what I mean. I don't, and I'm not sure I want to, Naruto stated. The second boy nodded. When they try to know each other, the boy begins by saying wanna make out, my bed is too cold, I want you to be with me, or I want you to spend time with me. Then, they have to touch the skin of the other. Don't ask me why, it's a universal rule. Then, they must prepare, with a kiss or two, and then, it goes on naturally. I understand. Naruto shouted, as he rose up. I must go see Sakura, ask her to be with me, touch her, and then kiss her. That's what I must do, right? Kakashi nodded. At least, that's the secret the pervert prophet Shibaku revealed to me, once I offered him my banjo. I will have to thank him, the next time I see him, the blonde genin declared. He stared at his teammate and teacher. I feel ready, but can you please stay near me? If I screw up. You won't, the jounin said reassuringly. We're with you. Sasuke added. Thank you, Naruto declared. I will immediately go to Sakura. A short while later. What is it, Naruto-kun? Sakura asked the blonde, as he approached her before Tazuna's house. Sakura, he started, apparently struggling to maintain a calm face. I want you to be with me, he managed to blurt out. The girl opened her mouth in surprise, blushing. What? He took her hands within his own, and kissed her on the lips, much to her astonishment. While Sasuke was only smirking, Kakashi was grinning widely under his mask. The couple stayed like that a moment, like statues, until they separated. Both were panting heavily. That was unexpected. Sakura muttered, as red as a tomato. But, enjoyable. Yeah, Naruto said with difficulties. So what? Are you okay dating me? She smiled. But of course. Yes. He jumped on place. Yes. Kakashi imitated him. Chibaku's advice work. I am so happy for you too, and I hope things will stay like that forever. The puppeteer, Shibaku. The two groups stared at each other calmly, ready to strike any time. Chibaku unsealed his newest puppet, Yukmachi, a humanoid dummy looking like an androgynous man of wood, with a very huge belly. Kazama cracked his fingers, Kitsune adopted a defensive stance, and Naruko rolled her shoulders. In front of them, Team 7 was prepared to attack. Kakashi had revealed his Sharingan to the world, Sasuke was shuddering out of impatience, and the newest couple only waited Sasori's signal to launch powerful ninjutsu on their opponent. Ah, the power of love, Shibaku thought. So beautiful. Disgusting. Too much happiness and not enough misery. Torch everything. New techniques only, the puppet master declared. 3 minutes. Ready? Go! Sasuke was the first to act. Fire release, Wild Phoenix. 3 fireballs were launched at Team 7's adversaries. Naruto reacted quickly. Water release, Stormy Blockade. Liquid came from nowhere, swirled around her, and then hit the projectiles, extinguishing them, before continuing to advance toward Kakashi's group. Kazama decided to help. Wind release, Cold Wave. A very cold gale of wind blew, transforming the water into shards of ice. Wind release, Violent Wind Palm. Naruto's genin self created a powerful gust of wind. Fire release, Dragon's Breath. Both Sasuke and Kakashi began to spit fire. The blaze, enhanced by the wind, evaporated most of the shards on its way, before rushing through the clearing. Wind release, heat wave. Another gale stopped the inferno, dissipating it. Wind release, drilling air bullet. Kitsune inhaled deeply, before exhaling, launching a massive blast of oxygen. Water release, tornado of water. Sakura, using the liquid kept in a gourd attached to jumpsuit, formed a swirling shield around her group. Naruto smirked. Water release, snake's mouth. Immediately, the protection became a danger, as a viper of liquid formed out of it, menacing to bite the pink-haired girl. Only for it to be cut in half by wind. Naruto's genin self smiled at his girlfriend. It's not right. He didn't shout his technique's name. The blonde puppeteer whined. He is a real ninja, Sasori stated. Calling your attacks is stupid, since the enemy will know what you're going to do, except if you're lying. If that's so. His apprentice muttered, as Yukmachi opened its muzzle. Naruto's silent technique, doomed gas of doomed doom. You suck. Shut up. Do you even have a better name? Silent puppet technique, blinding breath. Not bad. Not bad? You desire something more elaborated, perhaps? Why not? Yukmachi's awesome ass-kicking silent technique, the Monkey King's stinky gas that attacks the eyes of the weak and the wicked? Alright, I get it. You're better than me at names, jerk. Happy? Oh yes, funny lord of all jesters that I find amusing to humiliate at all times of the day. I hate you. The puppet spat a concentrated stream of white gas at Team 7. Sakura put herself between them and the technique. Water release, violent water wave. Water gushed out of the girl's mouth like a waterfall, stopping Chibaku's newest creation. Then, she attacked. Water release, water fong bullet. The water she had spat swirled, transformed into a drill, and hit Yukmachi. Fortunately, the high-quality wood and the reinforcing seals on the dummy's surface allowed the puppet to survive, even if the water scorched its armor. The 3 minutes are up. At Sasori's call, everyone relaxed. Hey, Chibaku, Sasuke said as he advanced toward the blonde puppeteer. What kind of wood are your puppets made of? It shouldn't have resisted Sakura's jutsu. It's not really the wood, rather the seals I wrote under it, that are responsible, the boy explained, with a proud tone. They reinforce it, making it as hard as steel. Sasuke nodded, with interest in the eyes. Do you think they can be applied to people? No, Chibaku answered. But they can be used on clothes. It won't be as hard as metal, but enough to reduce the strength of physical blows. You want some on your outfit? Yes, the genin confirmed. I will place 1 or 2 on it tonight, then, the blonde stated, before noticing his normal counterpart laughing with Sakura. How did they end up together, by the way? Sasuke snorted. It's thanks to you apparently. Chibaku raised his eyebrows. Can you explain some more? The Uchiha shrugged. Apparently, you taught Sensei some tricks, which he then taught to Chibaku, who then used them to win Sakura over. Ah, the boy said, remembering that special technique Sasuke was talking about. It worked, apparently. Not for him, the genin smirked. He tried them on Tsunami, and got slapped for it. You don't see the mark because of his mask, but it is there. Why are you laughing? The Ice Princess, Haku. As she entered the beehive-like structure, Haku recognized Kisame tearing off his bandages in a corridor. The former Jounin tilted his head to the side, and grinned once he noticed the kunoichi. You're early. A kind person helped me picking up the herbs, she said. The man's smile grew even more. You have a suitor? Haku blushed, and Kisame laughed. How does he look? Is he of your age? I don't have a suitor. It was a girl that helped me. She remembered Kazama's face. She did have a handsome brother, but... Her teacher roared, and fell on the floor. Dear Haku. You are already crushing on a boy. No. She denied. Oh, come on. He rose up. Had he asked you out? No. He will, the man said as he balanced Samahata. He will take you on a date, or I will cut him in half. Haku has a suitor? Much to her displeasure, the kunoichi saw Kimimaro approaching the duo. The Kaguya looked at her with brotherly love. This is wonderful. Did I hear that right? Zabuza asked, as he joined them. Someone is courting you, Haku? The kunoichi was now looking like tomato, and couldn't muster the strength to answer. Zabuza took this as a yes, and his eyes blazed with fury. If he dared to touch you, I'm going to kill him. Slowly. Painfully. It wasn't a normal teenager, and he wasn't courting me. Haku spat. It was Kazama Erasure. The male trio stopped talking. Zabuza locked eyes with her. Care to explain? He came to me while I was gathering herbs for your medicine, she said. He wanted to make us a proposition. Betraying Gato, I suppose? Kimimaro guessed. That, and a bodyguard job. His group is apparently hunted by S-rank missing neens, and they fear for their lives. Our help will be precious to them. She took her breath. They are going to pay us 5 times more than Gato. Gato. They stayed silent a moment. No. Why? She asked to Kisame. He is vile vermin, and probably going to betray us. Even if he doesn't, it's only a shard of what they are offering us. Haku, Zabuza growled. It isn't about money, but about honor and publicity. First of all, backstabbing a first employer will reduce our chances of finding a second. Secondly, we will be forever called traitors, and it will ruin the good reputation we struggled so hard to achieve. And finally, I don't trust them at all. So no, we will attack Tazuna anyway, at least as long as Gato doesn't betray us. But we will be outnumbered. She pointed out. If we go all out since the beginning, Kisame declared. We won't have any problem. Have faith in yourself, Haku. I know for sure they have the Kyuubi's vessel with them, the kunoichi replied. If her companions were surprised, they didn't show it. My bloodline, against the power of a bijou? Only Yagura ever succeeded at fully controlling his inner beast, Kisame stated. At best, this container will be able to tap in the Kyuubi's chakra, increasing his abilities. In such a case, I will take care of him. Have you discovered something else? Kimimaro asked. She nodded. Erasure is an alias. They are from the Uzumaki clan. This took them aback. Kisame frowned. That explains why we have no info on them, but that's even better. If we bring them alive to another village, then we will be awarded with an incredible reward. If we capture the Jinchuriki, the Kaguya added, then we will have the perfect weapon to defeat Yagura. Zabuza grinned under his mask. Sorry, Haku, but we are going to fight tomorrow. My decision is irrevocable. The kunoichi closed her eyes. Naruko-san, Kazama-san, forgive me, but our next meeting will not be peaceful. Naruko. Tomorrow, the boss began, his eyes drifting to the gathered crowd of ninjas sitting in the salon. We will go to the bridge, and Zabuza's team will come either to attack us or to negotiate with us. Even if I hope they will listen to reason and abandon Gato, we must prepare for the worst. First, one of my clones will be disguised as Tazuna. The original, and his family, will stay in this house, protected by traps and clones, just in case Gato plays dirty and tries to take hostages. Secondly, Sasori continued, we will prepare an attack plan. If Zabuza's gang attacks, I, and Kazama-san, will take on Kisame. Kakashi-san will fight Zabuza. The rest of Team 7 will take care of one of their apprentices, while Akane, Chibaku and Kitsune will defeat the other. Kazama will first use his wind jutsu, the heat wave and the cold wave, to dissipate the mist each time our adversaries try to thicken it. We must try to keep them on the bridge, or at best push them into the mainland, where they won't be able to use the nearby water easily. I will put chakra-disturbing seals on the bridge, which should pump our opponents' reserves until they pass out. Kisame won't be affected because of his massive chakra levels. However, I put a paralyzing seal on him during our last battle. It should prevent him from moving, or at least slow him down. Kazama's report shows us that one of the fake hunter Nins, Haku, is a Hayaton user. She can form ice, for defensive or offensive purposes. She mainly uses Sanban and is dependent on her speed to fight. Team 7 is the best counter possible for her, so the group will attack her as their priority. It will be necessary to split our adversaries. Since we do not have any data on the last member of the missing Nins, Naruko's group, the most flexible of all, must take care of him. Thirdly, Kakashi finished, it is highly probable that Gato will try to betray Kisame's team, and assault us with his men once we are all weakened. If he does, we kill them all, especially if the tyrant is present. These thugs would probably try to loot Wave if their employer dies. We will make an example out of them. Understood? The traveling Naruto finally asked. Yes. The rest all shouted at once. Then we will win. Kakashi declared. Go to bed, rest, and prepare yourselves. As almost everyone left the room, Naruko approached her sensei. What is it, Naruko? He asked her, once they were alone. The girl bit her lower lip, and the teenager frowned. It's about Haku, isn't it? Yes, she confirmed. She seems so nice. I can't understand why she's working for someone like Kisame. Haku has had a difficult life, on par with our own, the blonde responded. She was born with a bloodline, a gift hated in her homeland of Kiri. She had suffered the same childhood as us, until Zabuza, and probably Kisame, took her under their wing, giving her a structure and a purpose. So, she is like me, Naruko realized. In my world of glares and silence, Sensei came. My whole life revolves around him now. Do you think we can make peace with her? I hope so, Naruko. I really hope so. The traveler, Kazama. Either morning, Kazama and his companions left clones around the house, while saying goodbye to Tazuna's family. The bridge builder and his daughter wished them good luck, and Inari, surprisingly, said he looked forward to seeing them return. While they were walking, Kazama was approached by Kakashi. Naruto-san, am I a good teacher? The Jonin whispered to him, making sure the others couldn't hear them. The teenager locked eyes with him. Why do you ask that? He trailed off. I must redeem myself for my mistakes, and I must know if my current path is the right one. Well. Kazama muttered, I think you are doing the right thing. It was strange to give advice to his old role model. I thought about your counterpart, the man said. If he had been my ward, then he could have had a good life. Same with Sakura. While I haven't yet forgiven you for abandoning my other self, he replied, I must say that you couldn't do anything for Sakura. The conspiracy within Konoha would have foiled all your efforts, or killed you. If only he could know who was behind this. If you atone for wasting my double's childhood, then we are even, in my mind. But you should ask his forgiveness, and not my own. I may be him, but I am another person entirely. The man stayed silent, before eyeing his blonde student. After today's events, we will talk, and I will pass his judgment. But was I right in helping him date Sakura? What if one of them died? What I dash? There is nothing wrong in helping them find love, Kazama cut in. I am even a bit jealous. He remembered his old loneliness, devoid of friends. If he could have a girlfriend to support him in his life, he would have been far happier than he had. They have both issues, we have all realized that. Perhaps that staying together will help these two deal with their inner problems. Maybe, the Jounin admitted. But dash. No buts, the demon vessel replied, as he created another clone, who disguised himself as Tazuna. Stop beating yourself over your decisions. Nothing will go wrong if you are here to protect them. The man's lone eye blinked. I failed to protect many people, like your father. Then this time you will succeed. They arrived at the bridge, and were greeted by the workers and the mist. Fortunately, Kazama's knowledge of Tazuna made the deception easy. The ninjas gathered around the false old man, awaiting the inevitable. When the mist thickened, Kazama realized Zabuza's team was just in time for the rendezvous. They are coming, he declared. Protect Tazuna. Or rather, my clone, he added silently. His allies took their position, ready to strike any time. The workers were swiftly evacuated, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, the group discerned four shapes advancing toward them. Kisame Hashigake, only wearing pants and samahata. Zabuza Momochi, presenting himself in a Jounin vest and carrying his blade on the back. Haku, wearing a black kimono, but no mask. A white-haired boy, with gray robes covering his skin. Kazama immediately recognized him. The Bone Freak. The teenager remembered his last fight with him very well. That's not good, he is one hell of a tough opponent, and unfortunately, they look prepared for battle. So? Kazama shouted. Have you listened to our offer? Yes, and we rejected it, Zabuza unsheathed his sword. When we are bought, we stay bought. Gato is going to betray you, the demon vessel shot back. This man doesn't have any honor, but we do. We have all the funds necessary to help you in your goal. We will simply take them on your dead body, Kimimaro replied. Little fish. Kisame muttered, as he stared at Kitsune with a shocked expression. What are you doing here? The boy gazed gravely at the swordsman. I'm fighting with my family, as I have done before, Kisame-san. They know each other? Kazama wondered. What do you dash? The former misnin didn't finish his sentence, as realization hit him. You're the foxman? Yes, he answered. My rage transforms me into a monster. I see. Kisame trailed off. It's sad we have to fight again today. Samahata won't like it. The sword grumbled sadly. Sorry, Kitsune apologized, smiling at both the swordsman and his blade, but it's my duty. The man blinked. Let's end this all today. Forgive me, Naruko-san, Haku announced to the blonde girl. Please step aside. You are a nice kid. I don't want to fight you. Haku-chan. The demon vessel whispered. You don't have to do this. I will stand, but but you can back down. The kunoichi chuckled sadly. I am sorry to say this, but I will fight side by side with my team. And if I have to do so, I will kill my heart and eliminate you. The blonde girl closed her eyes, before opening them with a determined look. If it is so, then we have nothing to say anymore. Words are unnecessary, Zabuza declared. Prepare yourself. Hidden mist taken dash. He flinched. A few water drops touched Kazama's shoulder, and then the rest of the group. Rain dissipated the mist, revealing the unfinished bridge in its full glory. The clouds were dark, casting their shadow upon the world below. But something was abnormal. The water was mixed with chakra, a sinister chakra Kazama immediately recognized. A few stray memories rushed through his mind, especially the image of Naruto being beaten within an inch of life. Susanoo! Don't touch the rain! Sasori shouted, the first of all to realize the danger. The water is mixed with chakra. It's a long-range technique. Effective, someone laughed from the other side of the bridge. Recognizing the voice, Kazama felt his blood freeze within his veins. 3 figures materialized at the end of the bridge, their abnormal eyes gazing at the gathered ninjas, as if they were some kind of predators. The demon vessel's copies gasped, and Sasori frowned. Both Kisame's and Kakashi's teams were staring at the newcomers, but only the teenager's former teacher seemed to realize who they were. Hello, Uzumaki Naruto, Tsukiyomi greeted, Amaterasu and Susanoo standing beside him. You have led us on quite the chase, but we have finally managed to find you and your companions. Crap, the ninja thought. Kisame's band was a huge problem on its own, and now these 3. Who are you? The normal Naruto asked. I've never met you. Susanoo chuckled. Of course, you don't. We only fought your alternate counterparts, after all. The sadistic bastard noticed Naruto glaring at her, and snorted. Still alive, little girl? You want another spanking? You are going to taste your own medicine, god wannabe. She shouted, adopting a defensive pose. I will kick your ass so hard you will end up on the moon. He sighed. As much as I admire your confidence and tenacity, I'm saddened by your inability to learn from your mistakes. You cannot defeat me. Not now, not ever. So these are the guys you were afraid about, Zabuza growled, as he tightened his hold on his blade. They look like theater actors. Amaterasu observed the swordsman and Kisame. This actor killed your whole team single-handedly in his home universe. The beheading knife and samahata materialized in his palms. I took these trophies from their corpses, as I will take your swords if you ever try to hinder us. Kisame paled as he saw his own weapon move uncontrollably. Who are you? How can you even possess a second samahata? I am Uchiha Madara, but you can call me Amaterasu if you prefer, the ninja stated with a proud tone, as the blades vanished. And I wield your sword because I killed you, in another world. What is this gibberish? Kimimaro asked. Horns of bones formed all over his body, making him look like a white hedgehog. The truth, Susanoo replied, as he stared at Kazama, pointing his index on him. This man's real name is Uzumaki Naruto, and his friends are copies of him. They aren't from this world, but from beyond the veil separating dimensions. I still don't understand what the hell you're talking about, Zabuza complained. Well, Chibaku trailed off. It's kinda hard to explain. Drop the advanced henge, Kazama ordered. It will be simpler. He revealed his original appearance, and the others followed his example. Except them, Kakashi, and the Uchiha trio, everyone gasped. What the fuck? Naruto's normal self muttered. They're like me. It's complicated, his teacher said. But basically, they are you, or rather, what you could have been. I will tell you everything, once we have won this battle. So you were aware of that? Yes, the Jounin stated, as he revealed his Sharingan. And Kazama's team and I are going to fight them. They are enemies of Konoha, and very dangerous. Stay away. Sakura shook her head. We won't flee. It's not the day to mutiny, Kakashi replied. Go away. No, Sasuke stated. We have improved, and we can help you. Together, Team 7 can face everything, his blonde student said. Please. The Jounin frowned. Fine, but I want you to run away if things go sour. There is another option, beside fighting, Tsukiyomi announced. Why not make peace and work together? What? Is this a joke? Kazama wondered out loud. Not at all, the masked man explained. Why not forget old grudges and team up? Imagine what we could do if we combined our abilities. We would be unstoppable. No, sorry, I'm not interested in joining the people that killed Kabuto, Chibaku replied, as he unsealed Yukmachi. Sasori released two dummies, linked to each other by a long, black chain. You killed my agent. I want to be reimbursed. Susanoo chuckled. It can be arranged. He rolled his shoulders. I can resurrect him. Yeah, let's believe the guys that tried to kill us, Chibaku deadpanned. Believe what you want, but I can bring him back, the man said, as he touched his mask. The Rinnegan's powers are limitless. The blonde puppeteer snorted, and his teacher didn't move. The voices want to kill you, and for once I agree with them, Kitsune declared, as his eyes reddened. As I said, I'm just going to kick your ass, Naruto stated. It's payback time. Sorry, but no, we will fight today, Kazama said, as he adopted an attack stance. Tsukiyomi blinked. This is unfortunate, and pointless. Don't you realize that our goals are the same? Konoha betrayed us all, and we can destroy it, across all universes. We can create a paradise, where peace will be eternal. Kazama stiffened. Under our tyranny, I suppose? He guessed. People are weak, the masked man replied. They do not deserve to rule. Don't you want to get back at the men and women that abused you all your life? What I want doesn't matter, the teenager stated. You attacked us, killed Kabuto, and almost killed Naruto. I am not going to forgive you for this. Sensei. The girl muttered. Vengeance is healthy, as is your loyalty to your friends, Tsukiyomi agreed. But your double is still alive, and we can bring back Kabuto whenever we want. Defying death is possible. Orochimaru proved it once. Maybe, Kazama nodded. But I do not trust you. At all. The masked man stiffened. You realize that what we can't obtain peacefully, we will take by force? Do you really want your friends to die? I won't let you touch them, the demon vessel growled. You will have to go through me. And me, Kakashi said, his team eyeing the trio with determination. Fine, Susanoo menaced. Your unity is admirable, but an organized bunch of losers is still no threat to us. The last time we fought, Amaterasu added as he eyed Kitsune and Chibaku, we were toying with you. But since you proved yourself to be more dangerous than we expected, this time there will be no holding back. It is sad, travelers, but we will have to make you comply, Tsukiyomi declared sadly. You will help us, whether you desire it, or not. Sorry to say that, Kisame declared. But, while I don't understand at all what's happening, the kids are ours to kill. Get lost. Susanoo laughed. Disappear, little fish. We need the world wanderer alive. We will kill the rest for you, so return to your fishbowl. My wounded pride tells you to shove off. Zabuza spat. We have a contract, and I will wash my defeat with his blood. S rank or not, I will kill you if you get in the way. S rank? Everyone looked at Amaterasu, who seemed insulted. S rank? He repeated. We are not S rank ninjas. Space twisted. The rain stopped. The clouds were red, and the image of a giant Sharingan formed on them. We are SS rank. We are a class all of our own. Countless weapons appeared before the eye's mirage. Blades, spears, hammers, scythes, flails, knives, daggers, arrows. Kazama watched mesmerized as they floated above the bridge, ready to fall any time. I have collected over 1,000 blades. Amaterasu declared, clearly proud of his accomplishments. I have survived a century of war. I have defeated armies. Today, you will too fall before me. Our battle will be legendary. He waved his hands in a challenging gesture. I am Madara Uchiha, god of war, and I fear no one. Storm of blades. Instantly, all his weapons descended upon the gathered ninjas like a rain of metal. The battle had just begun, and yet right off the bat it would become a bloody one. Chapter 10, The Killing Field. In less than a minute, everything went straight to hell. While Kakashi and his team avoided the multiple weapons thrown at them, they broke their formation to do so, like all the ninjas present. The three masked men charged at them, and the situation evolved into a chaotic melee. The Jonin's Sharingan, however, helped him keep track of the events. Firstly, his genin were currently fighting one of the fake hunter nin, the one in white. The missing nin was now covered with an armor of bones, making him look like a knight. He was wielding a flail, made of a skull and vertebrae. Secondly, Kitsune, Kisame, Zabuza, and that Amaterasu guy began to attack each other. The young blonde transformed into a werfox, the SS rank shinobi picked up 2 katanas, and engaged the 2 swordsmen of mist in a fencing battle. Thirdly, the second hunter nin formed a dome of ice around him, Chibaku, Shinja, Naruto and the man with mismatched eyes. Before they disappeared from Kakashi's view, he saw Naruto beginning a water jutsu, and the masked ninja projecting chakra with his hand at his enemies. Finally, Kazama and Kakashi himself were assaulted by the last Madara Uchiha, who shot blue fireballs at them with his fingers. The 2 ninjas avoided them all, and riposted with the heat wave and the dragon's breath. The result was a massive cone of fire hoisted at their opponent. Space twisted, and the inferno got absorbed by the man, as if he were a vacuum cleaner. Madara put his palms together, and a freaking tornado formed around him. Unable to resist, Kakashi and his ally were swallowed by it, like the sea's water and large chunks of the bridge. Reacting quickly, Kazama used heat wave to propel himself within the tornado, and Kakashi imitated him with great breakthrough. Their enemy seemed to simply walk on the winds, perfectly at ease within the chaos. Kazama, closing the space between him and his enemy, tried to ram a Rasengan in the masked man's chest, only to fall through him. Then, Madara somehow transformed himself into a black hole, absorbing everything near him. A second later, Kakashi had left the inside of a tornado for a dark place. He landed on strange pillar of rock, before jumping on the side, escaping death when a large part of the bridge crashed near him. The location was composed of white structures and a shadowy, moonless and starless sky. Kazama was too on another pillar, but Madara was nowhere to be seen. The blonde approached the Jonin. Kakashi-sensei, do you have any idea where we are? The man masked his surprise, and shook his head. No. The other ninja sighed. Well, that's too dash. Faster than the wind, Kakashi rammed a Chidori in the blonde's chest, and as expected, went through him. How did you know? Madara said, as he retook his original form, teleporting a bit away. My Sharingan can recognize a henge when it sees one, the man replied. That, and Kazama is always disturbed when he calls me Kakashi-sensei, which you weren't. The masked man's lone eye blinked. So Obito is helping you from beyond the grave? Blue fire formed within his palm. Let me see if you are worthy of my descendants' help. Suddenly, a blast of cold wind blew toward Madara, who vanished. Kazama, the real one, landed next to Kakashi. I don't know what kind of place is it, and I don't see any escape. He swallowed us, the Jonin stated. Perhaps this place is the source of his powers? A deep voice resonated in the air. Correct, Hatake Kakashi, Madara whispered. This is the Takamagara, a pocket dimension linked to my Sharingan, created by myself and only for myself. The only way to leave is to beat me. The masked man reappeared, far, far away. Meteor shower. He shouted. Red lights illuminated the darkness above the trio. Burning rocks of the size of shuriken descended upon them at an incredible speed. As fast as they could, Kakashi and Kazama began to run at Madara, struggling to avoid the falling stars along the way. The masked man used a technique. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kakashi's eyes widened in horror as a second Madara appeared next to the original. The original charged at the Jonin and almost put a kunai in the Kapinin's skull. In a masterful show of agility, the ninja moved his head out of the weapon's way, and at the same time attempted to punch his opponent in the belly. Unfortunately, his adversary jumped to the side, an action that shocked the gray-haired shinobi. He didn't turn intangible. Kakashi thought. He didn't teleport either. This clone can't use all of the original's abilities. Devising a strategy, the Jonin briefly looked sideways at his partner, who was engaged in a ninjutsu battle with the other Madara. The copy exploited his moment of inattention, projecting a cone of blue fire with his palm at the Kapinin. Deciding to counter fire with fire, the ninja riposted with the dragon's breath. The two infernos collided in a massive firework. Suddenly, the Uchiha's clone ceased to project his azure blaze, bent down in an attack pose, and slammed the ground with his right hand. One of the pillars jumped out of the floor, and Madara kicked it, sending it flying at Kakashi. The man cut the missile in half with the beast-tearing palm, saving his own life. Then, the Kage Bunshin oriented his clenched fists toward the soil. They projected blue fire, and propelled Madara in the air. The floating ninja then began to spit fireballs at Kakashi. The man sighed as he prepared a jutsu. If a simple shadow clone is strong enough to compete with me, I don't think my partner will be able to defeat the original alone. I must kill this copy, and rush to Kazama's help. Unfortunately, he had the feeling things wouldn't be so easy. The Traveler, Kazama. 10 shadow clones of Kazama used Heat Wave at the same moment, targeting Tsukiyomi, who didn't move. Behold the wrath of the skies. Wind release, Fujin. An invisible blast pushed back the blonde's attack, dissipated them, shattered the pillars, and hit the world wanderer with the strength of a cannonball. The teenager flew, and crashed on the ground, feeling some of his bones breaking under the shock. Struggling to ignore the pain, the young man rose up, and used Cold Wave at Madara. This time, his adversary faded out of Kazama's sight. I see that you have mastered some of your ancestral techniques, the ninja's voice muttered to the blonde's ears. It is good. The blood of the Uzumaki is still strong within you. Unfortunately, the masked man said, as he appeared right before his adversary, Konoha's actions have restrained it. He tried to punch Kazama in the face, but the blonde instinctively tilted his head, before grabbing the man's arm, or at least, trying, as his own hands simply went through it. Stepping back, the blonde avoided a kick, and then another. Madara attacked again and again, but the teenager managed to redirect most blows away, at least, when his enemy wasn't becoming intangible. Oh, you are using the Azure Dragon style? The masked man asked, curious. It's a very bastardized, inferior version, but still, I wonder where you found its instructions, anyway. I have bad news for you. What? You're not very good at it yet, the man stated, as he grabbed the blonde's sleeves, restrained his arms, and approached his head. Kazama found himself locking eyes with his opponent's strange and gleaming Sharingan. Tsukiyomi. Instantly, the world turned red. Kazama inwardly cursed as he found himself standing on a cloud, under a crimson moon. He could see the bloody earth below, and more importantly, Uchiha Madara looking at him from another drift. Welcome in my mind, Uzumaki Naruto. The Werfox, Kitsune. Kill them. The voices ordered. I'm doing what I can. Kitsune answered, as he moved out of a katana's way. Amaterasu continued his assault, lazily countering Kisame's attempts at cutting him in half. Zabuza decided to take his chance and behead both the Werfox and the SS rank menace. Kitsune bent down, avoiding the attack, and Amaterasu jumped. Spinning, the man counterattacked by cutting the missing Nin's left shoulder, before kicking him in the jaw. Zabuza staggered and protected himself from a second strike, by using his massive blade like a shield. Kitsune decided to exploit the occasion. Wind release, drilling air bullet. Nonchalantly, Amaterasu fell through the ground, and the blast of wind ejected Zabuza out of the bridge, making him fall into the sea. Then, Kisame tried to shred the Werfox apart with Samahata, but stopped moving, as lines of ink covered his body. What? The man yelled. Sasori seal. You won't be able to move for a good time. He showed his fangs. But I can. Someone chuckled. So, you have your little surprises, Kit. Kitsune turned his head, and locked eyes with Amaterasu. The voice's rage and thirst for revenge overwhelmed him, and the possessed boy adopted a bestial, ferocious pose. I have to repay you for last time, the masked man said, as he caressed his shoulder with his duke. He dropped his blades, and cracked his fingers. Why not settle our feud hand-to-hand, in a good old fistfight? The Werfox roared, and charged. Amaterasu lowered his stance, his eyes fixed on his incoming opponent. Then, he ran toward Kitsune, and punched him in the chest, breaking ribs. Kitsune didn't care, and swung his paw, almost beheading the man, who tilted his head. A second later, a fist impacted on the Werfox's face. His adversary became invisible. His speed was incredible, and his blows were like cannonballs. Sheltering himself behind his arms, the boy resisted the tempest of strikes painfully, sensing his bones being shattered and his blood dripping on the bridge. A powerful upper kick hit his jaw, and sent him flying in the air. Amaterasu teleported behind him, closely following his movements. Strange threads worked their way out of his armor, like black tentacles. Earth grudge fear, aerial capture. The strings grabbed Kitsune, winding around his muscles. Madara's lotus, fallen lord, the masked man whispered. Both teleported above the clouds, before descending toward the bridge, spinning rapidly. Kitsune knew his head would be the first thing to hit the ground, and thought fast about a way to save his own life. As the duo was 10 meters above the floor, the Werfox opened his muzzle. He released a blast of air, which slowed down his fall. Crimson chakra covered his fur. The collision was extremely brutal. Kitsune felt as if someone had dropped a mountain on him. The bridge broke partially, and rock shattered. The Werfox didn't doubt that without the Kyuubi's power protecting him and healing his wounds, he would have died. Even then, he couldn't move, laying pathetically on the ground, at Amaterasu's mercy. The masked man was standing before the blonde boy, narrowing his head at him. So you survived. I have to admit it, you are very resilient, but it wasn't enough. The Werfox growled in a feeble response. It's nothing personal, the Uchiha said, as he took one of the swords nearby. It is simply the law of nature. The strong kills the weak, the predator eats the prey. Go to hell. The boy spat, as he unwillingly retook his original appearance. The voices were silent, stunned. I am already in it, the man said, as he wavered his blade. I am living in a world where the weak is prospering, where no one can compete with me. What is a warrior without worthy foes to overcome? Alone, a voice answered. Kitsune and Amaterasu turned their face toward an immobile Kisame, who was smirking. A true warrior doesn't fight for money, for power, for peace. A true warrior fights for the fight itself, kill for the sake of killing. Names, position, causes, glory, do not matter. Only the challenge matters. He difficultly brandished Samahata, struggling against the seal. This philosophy, I understand it perfectly. The masked man teleported before Kisame. Then, if you are like me, are you willing to fight me? Yes. Even if your chances of defeating me are almost inexistent? Yes, the man declared with a shark-like grin. Amaterasu stayed silent, before touching Kisame's neck with his fingers. The seal vanished. Then come. The two combatants swung their swords, beginning their duel. Kitsune, unable to move, watched silently the spectacular battle. Skills, parades, tricks, two weapon masters were displaying their abilities to their fullest. Amaterasu only relied on his weapon, preventing Kisame's use of ninjutsu by targeting his arms all the time. No techniques. Let our blades decide our fate. Fine, the missing nin snarled. I will kill you the way you want. And yet, despite his bragging, Kisame was obviously the underdog. Kitsune saw him slowly getting cut more and more, his movements becoming more and more sloppy, his speed being reduced. Amaterasu's assaults were savage and deadly. He was a tempest that couldn't be stopped. The swordsman from Mist tried to behead his enemy one last time, and a sword pierced his body, splattering the soil with blood. After a while, Kisame fell on the ground, a sword through his belly. Amaterasu stood still, like a statue. In the end, the battle had a clear winner. The normal. Naruto was having a bad day. He and his team were fighting a monster. A physical one. The ninja looked like a samurai, but his armor was composed of ribs and bones. It was like a human whose flesh had been replaced by the material underneath it. His weapon was especially dangerous. The skull flail, attached to a spine, moved quickly and brutally. It had already shattered the ground more than once, and Naruto had no doubt that any hit of this thing would be deadly. Surrender Tazuna to me, the monster ordered. Do it, and I will let you live. The disguised clone grunted. I'm not even the real deal, he said, as he retook his original appearance. The skeleton clenched his fists. Where is Tazuna? We have things more important to deal with right now. The clone yelled. This trio is going to slaughter us if dash. The freak twisted his hand, and the flail pulverized the doppelgangers. He frowned. A clone, he murmured to himself, before staring at the three genin. Where is Tazuna? The real one. As if we were going to tell you. Sakura spat. The monster straightened up. Either you do, or you die. Idiot, Naruto snarled. Kazama-san is right, these three guys are gunning for us all. Why not make a truce? The skeleton snorted. My companions can handle these arrogant trashes. Even better, they will make your allies' defeat easier. You fool, Sasuke sneered. You are going to die. Your friends are the only one that will fall today, the monster shot back. Enough talk. Where is the real Tazuna? The Uchiha's response consisted of 4 words. Fire release, Wild Phoenix. 3 fireballs impacted on the freak, who didn't even flinch. Fine, the monster grunted. You are going down. Fear the wrath of the last of the Kaguya, Kimimaro. He swung the flail, and tried to smash Sasuke with it. The genin barely saved his life by jumping backward. The skeleton began to slowly walk at the trio. Naruto gazed at Sakura. Ready? Ready and waiting. The two then lowered their stance,
before executing hand seals in perfect synchronization.
The violent water wave and the violent wind palm were used the same instant, creating a powerful jet of water, aimed at Kimimaro, but it didn't even slow the bastard down. The freak pointed his fingers at them, shooting 5 bones bullets. Sakura put herself between her team and the projectile. Water release, water tornado. The shield of liquid whirled, and the shots went through it. Sakura screamed as 2 bullets lodged themselves in her left shoulder, while Sasuke and Naruto managed to avoid the 3 remaining ones. As fury spread over his face, Naruto didn't even wait to land on the ground to attack, making the seals necessary for the beast-tearing palm. The cutting gale slashed Kimimaro's helmet of bone, but barely scratched it.
Is this guy invulnerable?
The genin wondered as he rushed at his girlfriend's rescue, while Sasuke bombarded the freak with fire techniques, stalling his advance.
Sakura-chan, are you alright?
Yeah, she replied as she got up.
We have to dash.
Kimimaro tried to kill the Uchiha with a swing of his flail, but the genin jumped, and the weapon continued its course.
The attack's real target wasn't Sasuke. It was Sakura. He pushed her on the side, and the flail smashed his spine, shattered it, his bones and his ribs, before making him crash on the ground. The blonde's view became red and blurry. He couldn't hear well, he couldn't even feel his limbs. Sideways, he saw Sakura crying over him. Survive. Sakura-chan, Naruto whispered, before closing his eyes, never to open them again. The girl, Naruko. As a dome of mirrors enclosed Haku, Susanoo, Sasori and the pervert, Naruko attacked. Water release, snake's mouth. The water on the bridge, left by the rain, took the form of a furious reptile that opened its jaw at the fatalist bastard. The man opened his palm in the viper's direction, and a flare of white chakra destroyed the liquid creature. You have progressed, little girl, the masked ninja grunted. But it isn't enough.
Then take that. Shibaku shouted as his puppet opened its muzzle.
Puppet technique, blinding breath.
The machine spat white gas at Susanoo. At the same, hundreds of reflections of Haku formed on the ice. 1,000 flying water needles of death. She unleashed a true rain of Senbon, but not on everyone.
Simply on the Uchiha jerk.
The man's red eye transformed into a black hole that swallowed the weapons and the gas. Naruko saw a smirk spread over Sasori's face. One of his 2 dummies, looking like a black and thin female humanoid, jumped into the gap within space, staying attached to the second puppet. The white male machine plunged all his fingers into the bridge, an act that allowed him not to be absorbed.
And then Susanoo screamed.
Naruko stayed still, terrified, as the masked monster roared in pain. The chain turned white, and the Uchiha bastard grabbed it. Sasori's grin widened.
Attack! Obeying, Naruko threw a full volley of kunai, imitated by Chibaku. The weapons flew, and Haku launched innumerable needles herself. They almost hit Susanoo, and he groaned something. Shinra. Tensei. The projectiles suddenly changed course, switching target.
Naruko, Sasori and Chibaku sheltered themselves behind Yukmachi, and Haku's mirrors protected her. Finally, Susanoo succeeded in ejecting the black dummy from the hole, sending it crash on the dome. The puppet shattered, and its owner promptly sealed it and its white partner into a scroll.
Susanoo glared at the redhead puppeteer.
What? What have you done to me? He yelled hatefully. Sasori answered by pointing his palm at his opponent, and a jet of pressurized water flowed out of it in the Uchiha bastard's direction. The masked man brutally slammed his hands. Shinra Tensei. An invisible force pushed back the water, Naruko and her companions, before making the dome explode into thousands of ice shards. Rising up, the blonde girl began a jutsu. Water release, stormy blockade. The clouds spat a real waterfall upon Susanoo, who stared at the skies. His mask radiated with a blue light, and a powerful beam coming from the ninja's Rinnegan vaporized the liquid.
The Uchiha stared at Naruto. "You sure love water, don't you?" he snarled. "And I really love fire." He pointed his index at her, and a powerful cone of blue fire rushed toward her. A wall of water saved her from death, and a fake hunter Nin appeared next to the blonde girl. "Naruko-san, are you okay?" She nodded. "Thank you, Haku-chan." "It's nothing," the Kunoichi replied, as she created a real fortress of ice between her and Susanu's endless blaze. "He and his allies are menacing us all. If we combine our efforts, surely we dash." The cold wall exploded, interrupting the young lady. A blue light was emanating from the Uchiha bastard's Rinnegan. "Goodbye," he whispered, as he shot a powerful beam at the two girls. This time, a shield of black metal protected them, even though a large part of it melted. Sasori was twitching his fingers, making a humanoid puppet release iron sand from its mouth. Chibaku had sealed Yukmachi, and approached the two Kunoichi. "Are you all right?" he asked them. Both nodded. "What happened?" Naruto wondered. "He doesn't absorb anything now." The blonde puppeteer smirked. "We neutralized his power over space." "How?" she gasped. "By unbalancing his chakra," he explained. "He is a master of the yin and yang releases, two special affinities for chakra. By manipulating them, he affects the fabric of time-space. It's complicated, but when we sent the Izanami into his hole, it spread yin chakra into it. Having too much yin and not enough yang to equalize his energy, his chakra went awry, and will probably stay unstable for a long time." Noticing the two girls' questioning frowns, Chibaku sighed. "Basically, we screwed his chakra control, and he cannot become intangible, nor teleport, without it. He still has an incredible firepower," Sasori continued, as the black sand stopped multiple beams of light. "He is however vulnerable at close range now. Chibaku, Naruto, as soon as I and the Hayatan girl create an opening, you will close the gap between us and him, and assault him physically." "And how are we supposed to survive, Sasori?" Chibaku grumbled. "He'll vaporize us before we can even reach him." By using the Kyuubi's help, the redhead replied. "If I remember well, I specifically modified your seal to facilitate your contact with it, haven't I?" The blonde opened his mouth, but closed it almost immediately. His eyes became red, and a cloak of crimson chakra covered his body. Sasori then stared blankly at Naruto. "And you?" "Kyuubi-san, I need help." Of course, the bijou complied, and she felt the demon's energy racing through her veins. "Make this cursed asshole suffer as much as possible. I owe him one hell of a beating, and I really want to pay him back." Two tails formed in her back, and three behind Chibaku. The redhead puppeteer locked eyes with Haku. "Ready?" She nodded. "Yes, Sasori-san." "Then let's go." The wall of iron sand shifted and transformed into spears flying at Susanoo. Haku shot shards of ice at the same target, and both Chibaku and Naruto began to run faster than the wind. The Uchiha bastard waved his hands, and projected jets of chakra toward them, his Rinnegan still shooting beams. The next 20 seconds were extremely chaotic for the blonde girl. Unable to properly observe what was going on around her, her view being reduced thanks to the speed, she only saw incoming rays of light, and avoided them. She heard the sounds of shouts, explosions, and of the bridge's destruction, but she didn't stop her course. Then, Naruto stared at Chibaku, who reached Susanoo the first. The blonde puppeteer tried to punch the masked man, who simply blinked. A second later, the blonde puppeteer was sent flying away. A second later, Naruto prepared herself to kick the Uchiha. A second later, the man noticed her, and his eyes widened. A second later, the blonde girl's foot connected with the proud jerk's head.
A second later, Uchiha Madara was propelled backward, his mask cracking under the shock.
A second later, an invisible force made Naruto crash on the ground. 3 seconds later, both she and Susanoo got up. A second later, they glared at each other. A second later, the masked man yelled, "Shinra Tensei!" A second later, Naruto's eyes widened, as the whole construction was pushed underwater, breaking.
A second later, the blonde girl, and about a third of the bridge, sank into the ocean.
The traveler, Kazama.
"Your attempts at harming me are useless, young man," Tsukiyomi said as Kazam tried to ram a Rasengan in his chest, but simply passing through him.
The SS-rank ninja teleported, reappearing a few meters away. "I am omnipotent in this illusion," Tsukiyomi declared.
"I control time and space, energy and matter, life and death.
For 3 days, you will be at my mercy. Don't worry, I won't torture you, if that's what you fear." "Then what do you want?" The demon vessel spat.
"I want to talk," he explained. "I want to convince you to stop this madness.
Can't you see that our enmity is pointless? We can do great things together, instead of battling?" The teenager gritted his teeth. "And you really expect me to hear you?"
"Yes,"
the masked man answered. "What have you to lose in listening to my words? Let me explain you the whole situation. You might find my propositions interesting, and I have answers to all your questions." The ninja wasn't wrong. Kazama had nothing to lose in hearing him.
Hell, he had listened to Mizuki's, Niji's, Gaara's, Sasuke's, and Orochimaru's ramblings. He could survive this man's sentences, and if he knew the whole truth about him.
"All right, you won," the blonde stated. "I will listen to you.
At least, until I find a way to escape this illusion," he added silently.
"I am happy to hear that," Tsukiyomi said. "You won't be disappointed."
A table and 2 chairs formed out of the clouds, and the masked man sat on one of them.
"Please, get comfortable." Kazama reluctantly sat down. "Let me present myself.
I am Uchiha Madara, founder of Konohagakure, former leader of the Uchiha clan, and Akatsuki's strategist and second-in-command," the SS-rank ninja explained with a proud, if polite, tone. "I have adopted the codename of Tsukiyomi to facilitate battle plans with my 2 counterparts, and I am from the same world as you."
So, this guy was in the Akatsuki.
I should have guessed before, with his robes.
"I am simply Naruto Uzumaki," the blonde replied. "Why were you in the Akatsuki?" The man chuckled. "Honestly? To destroy Konoha, for betraying me," he declared. "Okay, it's confirmed, he is not a nice guy.
And, secondly, to obtain the power necessary to reshape the world in my image, and to create a utopia."
"A utopia?" Kazama asked.
"I have a vision," Madara explained. "In my dreams, I have seen a perfect world."
"Tell Uzumaki Naruto," he locked eyes with the blonde, "do you have dreams? Ambitions?" That was a difficult question.
Once upon a time, he had desired to be Hokage, to earn the acknowledgement of the citizens of Konoha. But not anymore, not after this whole conspiracy deal. He had goals, but I wouldn't call it dreams, more like quests.
Tsukiyomi silently invited him to continue.
"I want to help all my counterparts that suffer in this multiverse," he said. "I want to find who was behind our crappy life.
I want to see my parents.
I want to see Uzushiogakure, or restore it.
I have a lot of goals." "This is a good thing, to have multiple objectives," the masked man declared. "Sacrificing everything for one dream is self-destructive.
My descendant, Sasuke, is the living proof of that. He showed it, at the Valley of the End."
Kazama's eyes widened. "You were present?"
"Not in flesh," Madara replied. "One of Akatsuki's agents recorded the fight, and I carefully observed it.
Like all good ancestors, I am watching over my great-great-great-grandson. I see. Anyway, the masked man wavered his hand. What is your opinion of Konoha? Bad. It's complicated. They ostracized you for something you didn't do, Madara pointed out with a soft voice. They hated you. They ruined your life. They prevented you from reaching your full potential. They tried to transform you into a slave. If I had been you, I would have said I want to destroy them all. They didn't all hate me, he replied. That, at least, was true. Who? Tsukiyomi asked. The owners of a ramen stand? Iruka Umano? He chuckled at Kazama's blank expression. Don't be surprised. My agents observed you all of your life. I know almost everything about you, at least, until you began hopping worlds. I know that your only non-hostile human contacts before your graduation were the Sandaime, your instructor Iruka Umano, the proprietors of Ichiraku's, and sometimes your fellow slackers, Inuzuka Kiba, Akimichi Chuji, and Nara Shikamaru. The first was simply seeing you to better manipulate you, the seconds were talking to you simply because you represented more than 2/3 of their income, the third simply helped you out of pity, and the other kids viewed you as an accomplice at best and an annoyance at worst. That's wrong. The teenager shouted. I'm not sure any more about the Sandaime, but dash. Naruto-san, the masked man interrupted him calmly. Have you ever seen someone else at the Ichiraku's ramen stand, beside you, Iruka, and Saratobi? The question took Kazama aback, and terrified him once the teenager realized that the answer was no. Ramen is not the most successful of all industries, Madara explained. The Ichiraku's was almost bankrupt, before you came. With you and the Sandaime as regular and generous customers, Tuchi-san and his daughter didn't fear poverty anymore. That's the only reason they treated you well. They couldn't afford to lose you. That's a lie, that's a lie. About your friends at the academy, let me ask you, did they ever invite you to their home? Did they ever try to stay in the same room as you, when you weren't punished? Did they ever offer anything to you? Kazama's silence was a good enough answer. And Iruka, apart from being slightly professional, what has he done for you? Did he give you remedial classes? Did he train you? Did he mentor you? He saved my life, Kazama shot back. For you or for the village? Madara pointed out. He simply protected his country's best weapon, and the forbidden scroll. He was a ninja doing his job, nothing more. Anger spread over the teenager's face. You're wrong. Naruto-san, the ninja whispered kindly, it pains me to say that, but it is the truth. Iruka isn't your friend. A true friend would have been there to help you refine your skills, would have accompanied you when you chased after Sasuke, would have invited you at his home, and Iruka did nothing, except paying a few ramen bowls and protecting you once, only because your death, and the loss of the Forbidden Scroll, would have been a crushing blow to Konoha. He saw you as a human being, yes. As a fellow comrade? Probably. But as a friend? I don't think so. He is lying, he must be lying. About your team. Sasuke tried to kill you. Sakura beat you, insulted you, almost deserted to follow Sasuke, which equaled to abandoning you, the boy that saved her life from Gaara, before forcing you to bring back her crush, like you were some kind of dog, while she didn't even help. And when you returned, she still didn't consider you at your rightful valor. She rejected your advances. She still loved a traitor. She still thought you would obey her. Tell me, Naruto-san, with friends like this, do you really need enemies? Kazama clenched his fists. He hated to admit it, but Tsukiyomi was right. Completely. He was telling the truth, the horrible truth that he had tried to ignore. It was like listening to Orochimaru's rant in the Land of Grass, all over again. Kakashi didn't adopt you, the son of his mentor. He left you alone, only taught you tree climbing of all things, and fully expected you to fail at the Chunin exams. Those who betray ninja rules are trash, but those who betray their comrades are worse than trash, that's his motto? He is quite the hypocrite, isn't he?
I already know, Kazama whispered.
They aren't my only friends.
Oh?
You must be talking about your other teammates, the ones that helped you during your failed attempt at capturing my descendant?
Except doing their job, what have they done for you?
Nothing.
Sai?
He backstabbed you.
Yamato?
He was your leash. He was only there to restrain you, should you ever go crazy. Tsunade didn't believe enough in you to allow you to work without being watched.
I have. He almost said Jiraiya, but remembered his flawed training.
I have Gaara. He isn't from Konoha, Tsukiyomi noticed. He is from Suna. Who, in Konoha, is really your friend?
Tsunade, he said.
Shizune. Madara blinked. Naruto-san, are you aware of the existence of the Inner Council?
The what?
What? I don't know what you are talking about.
The Inner Council is an unofficial assembly of powerful people that are basically the anti-establishment to the Hokage's power. It is a shadowy force that rules Konoha from behind the scenes.
And it responsible for most of your problems. Kazama's eyes widened. The conspiracy?
You can call it that, if you want, but the Inner Council is far more than a simple cabal. It has existed through the ages, under different forms, and formed under the Shodame's rule.
The first inner circle had been eliminated by the Nidaime.
The second inner circle came into being during the Sandaime's late years, before being destroyed by the Yondaime. The third inner circle really formed after your birth, and still existed once we both left our original dimension. The demon vessel thought about this new piece of information. One alternate Sandaime explained me that they were composed of many influential people, but refused to give me names.
Do you have them?
Of course, Madara declared. But since things are different in each alternate worlds, the members might change, depending on the universe's changes.
Kazama gritted his teeth.
The man was right, once again.
Anyway, I want you to give me their names.
Tsukiyomi chuckled.
I will do far better than that.
Before the teenager could do anything, the world changed. They had left the skies, for a dark room.
Dozens of people were sitting around a great table. The blonde and the Uchiha's chairs were floating above them.
This is one of the last meetings that one of my agents recorded, Madara explained. It was right before your departure from Konoha.
He descended among them. Come, and see for yourself.
I will tell you who they are. Kazama obeyed, and stared at his tormentors. A dark-haired man with white eyes.
Hayashi Hyuga, head of the Hyuga clan. An adult copy of Shino. Shibi Aburame, head of the Aburame clan.
A blonde man.
Inoichi Yamanaka, head of the Yamanaka clan. An adult Shikamaru. Shikaku Nara, head of the Nara clan. An old woman.
Koharu Yutane, counselor of the Hokage, and the Sandaime's teammate.
An old man.
Hamura Mitokado, counselor and former teammate of the Sandaime. The list continued. Most were powerful merchants, influent jounin, and even a friend of the daimyo.
And finally,
a blonde woman wearing green robes. Kazama's face was one blank expression. Another, dark-haired medic was standing behind her.
Tsunade Senju, Godame Hokage of Konoha.
Not a member, but rather, an executive. She is currently being kindly asked to order something to Jiraiya, specifically, to teach you a flawed style, so Konoha's agents will be able to put you down easily, and to study your Jinchuriki's powers, and as you know, the man complied. Her assistant Shizune was present, and didn't say a word. The masked man touched the blonde teenager's shoulder.
So tell me, Naruto-san, do you have any friends in Konoha? Silence fell. No. The statement was sad and pitiful. It was the anguish of a broken man, the despaired cry of a reluctant loner, the suffering of a martyr. The scene crumbled, leaving only a deserted land. Are you happy, now? Kazama asked, depressed.
Damn, tears were dripping from his own eyes.
Why should I? The masked man asked. I am not a monster that feeds on others' suffering. He joined his fingers. Naruto-san, you must understand that, well, I am like you. Or rather, I was like you, once upon a time. The land became a forest, and the duo was staring at a man wearing a red armor. His eyes were Sharingan. Another, younger Uchiha was standing beside him, wearing a blue armor. I am the man in red, Madara stated. The other is my brother, Izuna. Izuna, the only person I would have been ready to die for. When I was at my worst, he gave his most precious gift, willingly, to help me. 1 second later, the younger Madara was cradling his bleeding brother. On his deathbed, he forced me to promise him something. That one day, I would create a world where the gifted wouldn't be feared, where bright would prosper, where the privilege of name will be replaced the privilege of merit. Kazama saw an armored Madara shaking hand with the Shodaime. With Hashirama Senju, I founded Konoha on this basis. I thought it would be a utopia, a model, and I was wrong.
Pictures of the 9 bijou formed before them.
Do you know that Hashirama and I captured the 9 demons? That we sacrificed our men, our time, our resources, to capture them? And do you know that in one act, they were all stolen from us? The duo was now in the Hokage's office, where Madara was in an argument with the Shodaime. Once the other countries asked, Hashirama gave them the bijou. To promote world peace, he said. For the sake of equality. Those who worked hard to gain them had nothing, and those who stayed on the background, out of cowardice, obtained the result of our efforts. Can you imagine the pain I felt? To see all my beliefs being trampled upon by my most esteemed rival? The world became dark. Madara was staring at a crowd of Uchiha, all glaring at him. I tried to rally my clan, to change things, but they betrayed me. They preferred the easy way. They ignored the sacrifice of my brother, of the dead, to preserve their peace, or rather, servitude. My own wife and children left me, the man roared, as a beautiful woman and 3 kids shook their head at him. I damned myself for them, and they backstabbed me. Kazama stayed silent. The masked man's eyes were full of an endless hate, the same eyes as Sasuke. The illusion took the appearance of the valley of the end. So, I snapped. I tamed the Kyuubi, the beast my brother gave his life to capture, and I fought Hashirama, and lost. My brother's legacy was stolen from me, and I was left for dead. But I survived. I trained, prepared, planned, waited for the day when Konoha will finally burn, and out of the ashes, I will one day create a paradise. The demon vessel felt as if he had been struck by a lightning bolt. This man tamed the Kyuubi. My mother was the former Jinchuriki of the Fox. She died the night of my birth. A few astray memories rushed through his mind. She was my container in this world too, before someone ripped her seal and mind-controlled me into attacking Konoha. Together, we can achieve this vision. My original plan was small-scaled, but with your power, we can gather the bright, the strong, the talented, and conquer all universes. We can get back at Konoha, everywhere. Alone, none of us can destroy this cursed village, but together, we will be unstoppable. We will be gods. The day of Naruko's birth, a man named Madara Uchiha took her hostage and extracted me from Kushina, killing her in the process. The teenager couldn't answer. He opened his mouth. Tsukiyomi, you are the one that unleashed the Kyuubi on Konoha, aren't you? Madara's eyes widened, confirming Kazama's theory. I don't see what you are talking about, he lied. You extracted the Kyuubi from my mother, the blonde stated. Something in the back of his mind was convinced of that. You killed her, and you ruined my life.
Chakra exuded from his body, without his mental command.
It's a lie, Madara said. Whoever told you that is a liar. Kushina's seal simply malfunctioned. It was an accident.
Kazama's chakra separated from him, and fused with the illusion.
The decor changed, much to Madara's obvious surprise.
The duo was now on a mountain.
Madara was dragging a beautiful, red-headed woman by the shirt, before facing the town in front on them, Konoha.
He touched the woman's belly, opening a hole in it. The Kyuubi escaped from it, his eyes looking like two Sharingan.
What is this fantasy? Madara roared, before locking eyes with the blonde. Don't believe these lies. It is probably a trick from the Kyuubi to manipulate you. You do not tell the truth. Kazama replied. I simply know it. He straightened.
You won't manipulate me, Traido Dash. The blonde didn't finish his sentence, and scoffed instead. A strong hand grabbed his neck, before lifting him. Do not, ever, call me that, Naruto-san, Tsukiyomi murmured. The teenager didn't answer, or rather couldn't.
Yes, Madara said. Yes, I unleashed the Kyuubi on Konoha. Yes, I extracted the demon from your mother, after she refused my proposition of alliance.
But I didn't kill your mother, or your father, for the matter. The Kyuubi did, once your father freed him from my control.
I am not responsible for what happened to your parents, the fox is.
He approached Kazama's head from his own.
It was for your own good, so you could have a future.
Had your father not intervened, I would have taken you with me, and helped you achieve your true potential. If I hadn't intervened, you would have grown up as the son of a Jinchuriki, as hated and despised as you were.
You would have been a slave, and I wanted to make you a man. Can you really criticize that? I would have been a better father than your parents could ever be. The teenager spat at the man's mask. You don't believe me? Tsukiyomi asked. I am being honest with you. Your father sealed the Kyuubi in you, instead of simply destroying it.
He could have spared you the cruel fate of being a Jinchuriki, but did not. He chose the village above his son, and did so willingly, with the blessing of his wife. He and your mother betrayed you, Naruto-san.
I saved you from their influence.
This is bullshit. The murderer blinked.
Can't you see? Why can't you understand?
He seemed absorbed within his thoughts, before gasping.
Konoha must have brainwashed you. What? That explains everything. Madara muttered. Why you didn't rebel, why you didn't follow my path, why you still refused to strike back at them, they have brainwashed you, like these creatures from Root. It is the only explanation. This illusion must be one of their fail-safe.
I will free you from their hold on your mind. His lone Sharingan became completely black, and he whispered something.
Nikaboshi.
The world was suddenly swallowed by a deep darkness. The red illusion vanished, leaving only emptiness behind.
Madara grew, reaching the size of a mountain, and took Kazama within his hands. Let the void consume you, and be reborn anew, the giant whispered.
Coming out of nowhere, black threads pierced Kazama's torso, at the heart to be precise.
The boy screamed.
Do not fear the Mikaboshi, it is simply the sword that will sever all your restraints.
Kazama screamed.
And the pain stopped.
Light leaked from his heart, vaporizing the black threads.
A humanoid figure appeared. It was a beautiful, thin, and naked woman, composed of pure, azure crystal.
It was like an angel. Kushina?
Madara muttered, completely shocked.
Me!
She shouted, as thousands of blue chains formed from her body. They promptly restrained Madara's limbs.
Mother? Kazama wondered. I understand, it was your chakra that twisted my jutsu, Tsukiyomi declared. Sorry to disappoint you, but your son will be mine, and mine alone. No. No. The angel spat. I won't let you corrupt him. The Mikaboshi is already within him, despite your efforts, Madara gloated. The seed of the Uchiha will grow, slowly, and one day he will forsake your crappy will of fire, and choose my path instead. My son is strong. She yelled. Strong enough to resist your curse. The chains tightened, crushing the giant Uchiha, who then exploded in a flash of light. The darkness faded away, and Kazama awakened. Kakashi. Finally punching the clone in the face, Kakashi grinned mirthfully as he popped up into a cloud of smoke. Gathering all his strengths, the Jounin rushed at Kazama's side. The blonde was apparently in trance, his body protected by chains of blue chakra. Has he awakened his bloodline? The man wondered. Madara Uchiha was holding his head with his hand, right in front of Kazama. Kushina, cursed Spitfire. The ninja was gibbering to himself. Seizing the occasion, Kakashi charged at his enemy, the Chidori forming inside his fist. Even in his confusion, Tsukiyomi was still fast enough to deviate the blow, by seizing Kakashi's arm and directing it away from his heart. It's not nice to attack someone from behind. His lone Sharingan met Kakashi's own. The gray-haired ninja had left reality for a red room, a perfect illusion of his home. The Jounin's limbs were chained, and he couldn't move any. In front of him, his father, Tsukumo Hatake, was laying on his blood, his sword impaled through his belly. Father? The scene changed. He was now in a cave, witnessing a younger himself fighting side by side with Obito and Rin. Kakashi realized what Madara had in mind. No. Everything but that. Please, don't. Rocks began to fall. Please no. And crushed Obito. The scene changed again. It was now Konoha, and he saw his younger self watch helplessly the Shinigami taking Minato's soul. Sensei! Both Kakashi shouted. The scene changed again. He was now in a deserted house, one that he knew too much. Madara! He supplicated. Please, don't show me that. I won't survive this. His prayers were ignored, as he saw his younger self cradling the love of his life. Rin was a horror. She didn't look human anymore, she was dead. She begged me to stop, her murderer gloated. She begged for my forgiveness, when my men forced her to watch as I strangled her son to death. Was it yours? He had your eye color, after all. Anyway, after your child died at the ripe old age of 1 week, I took care of his mother. I have to admit it, your girlfriend was a beautiful woman. You have good tastes, Kakashi-kun. My soldiers were lusting after her, but, in my great generosity, I prevented them from violating her. I had something far better in mind. The monster smirked, showing Kakashi his bloody kunai and torture instruments. Please. Kakashi begged. I can't support to relive this memory. It's incredible, the resistance of the human body. It never ceases to amaze me. She screamed your name, you know. Screamed Kakashi, as if you were going to show up and save her. But nobody came, so she kept shouting. It was annoying. You know the old proverb, before you speak, turn your tongue 7 times in your mouth? Well, I took it literally. I kept her alive, chained, bleeding, and then I went all out on her. You see, I am a professional, so I couldn't resist trying new techniques. I cut, slashed, burned, broke, skinned, and all the time, I whispered to her these few words, Kakashi Hatake has abandoned you. Please. Kakashi screamed. She was my masterpiece, the torturer continued with a sadistic grin. I fashioned the best of all prisons, a body. Imagine yourself, just 1 second, in her place, suffering all days, unable to communicate with the outside world, for a whole week. Isn't that glorious? All of that because you
failed to save her, as you failed to save anyone. You killed your son, and you killed your lover. The younger Kakashi sobbed, before madly attacking his lover's murderer. The older one screamed, and his Sharingan twisted, transformed. The illusion was shattered, and the world returned to normal. Impressive, Madara murmured. To awaken the Mangekyo with memories only, you are truly worthy of the title of genius, Hatake Kakashi. The Jonin didn't reply anything for a while. His new Sharingan was simply blazing with fury. Do you have any idea of what you did to me? He charged at his enemy with rage and hatred in his heart and voice. I awakened your potential, the man calmly answered, as he paired Kakashi's blows. I have made you stronger, as I will make Naruto-san more powerful than ever before. I won't let you touch him. The Jonin yelled, as he pushed back the Uchiha with a violent kick. I won't let you twist him. Then you will have to defeat me, Tsukiyomi stated, as he teleported away. An impossible task. There is no such a thing as the impossible. Kakashi shouted. His Sharingan instinctively activated, unleashing black fire upon Madara. I will prove it today. A black hole formed in Tsukiyomi's eye, absorbing the attack. At this moment, Blue Chains grabbed the masked man, flinging him in the air. Kazama had awakened, and he was angry. Kakashi-san, you have no idea how much you are right. He locked eyes with the Jonin, before gasping. Your eye. It's an upgrade. I think, Kakashi said. And your chains? I don't know, Kazama said. I don't control them. My wounds are healing fast, however. I think it's linked to my mother. Kushina? The Jonin asked, before frowning. We will have to talk, after we escape this place, of course. Kazama smirked, as his eyes drifted to Madara, who was standing on a pillar, far, far away. Together we can beat him. Kakashi nodded. Let's teach him a lesson. The Werfox, Kitsune. Kisame. A furious Zabuza leaped on the bridge, attempting to kill Amaterasu in one deadly swing. The masked ninja masterfully avoided the attack, retired his sword from Kisame's body, and riposted. The Uchiha warrior began to push his adversary toward the edge of the construction, despite his enemy's enraged moves. Rising up with all the pain in the world, Kitsune walked toward the bleeding Kisame. Samahata was crying next to him. The man locked eyes with the blonde boy. Hello, little fish. Kisame-san. The Werfox in human form kneeled beside the dead in waiting. Why did you do that? You knew you couldn't win. The man smiled. Little fish, have you heard what I said? I don't fight to win. I fight for the fight itself. But why? The boy cried. Why? Because there is no meaning in this world, Kisame whispered. Because humanity has no future. I once had an ideal. I wanted to preserve my country, to ameliorate it, but in the end, it was all for naught. I was called a traitor and a monster, by the very people I was trying to help. In the end, goodness isn't rewarded, and evil is not punished. In the end, life isn't worth living. It's only in a battle, where politic, goals, names, reputations, are nothing, that all lies disappear. He chuckled. This world of truth. I wanted to witness it once, before dying. That's Dash. That's my way, Kisame cut him off. That's how I lived. Kitsune stayed silent a moment. Kisame-san. I used to think like you, but some things are worth living for. Some people are worth protecting. The missing Nin smirked. If that's in what you believe, if humans like you exist, then perhaps there is still hope, after all. Kisame-san. Little fish, he whispered. Can you do me a favor, please? Kitsune nodded. Take Samahata with you, the man explained, as he caressed his sword gently.
She likes you, and I think you will be a good swordsman one day. I will do it, the boy promised. Kisame closed his eyes.
Then I leave at peace, goodbye, little fish.
And he closed his mouth too, never to open it again.
Samahata sobbed, and Kitsune stayed silent. Then, his eyes drifted from the dead missing name to Zabuza and Amaterasu, still locked in their duel.
Once again, Madara was clearly dominating the fight. Full of a renewed determination, the blonde rose up, and touched Samahata. Let's go.
The creature nodded, before swirling around his arm. Kitsune sensed the sword fuse with him, making him double in size, and cover his body with scales. A few seconds later, an orange sharkman charged, roaring, at Amaterasu. The man tilted his head toward the incoming hybrid, and blinked as a punch ejected him from the bridge, sending him crashing onto the water. The man dropped his sword in the process. Ignoring a mesmerized Zabuza, Kitsune jumped onto the sea, landing on a shocked Amaterasu. The two descended deeper into the ocean, brawling, exchanging blows. After a few seconds, the masked man vanished, leaving Kitsune alone in the ocean. Then, large chunks of the bridge began to fall into the sea, and the Sharkman navigated between them, trying to reach the surface. Something, however, caught his attention: an unconscious blonde girl.
Naruto?
The boy grabbed her, and both got out of the water.
Are you alright, Naruko-chan?
He asked her.
Yeah. I think.
She muttered, before realizing she was talking to an orange fish.
Kitsune, is that you? It's me, the hybrid confirmed. What's happening?
Susanoo is blowing up the construction, she answered.
What about that Amaterasu guy? Kitsune didn't reply.
He simply stared at something standing on the water.
Naruto followed his gaze. Amaterasu was glaring at them, the Kusanagi in his right hand.
So Kisame left you his sword. He was an honorable opponent, and I offered him a warrior's death, Madara said. You have his sword, but do you have his resolve?
The two blondes put their feet on the water, rising up.
He will be avenged, the hybrid declared.
I promise it.
The masked man chuckled.
Revenge, the fuel that bring about all conflicts. He lowered his stance. Show me the power of your hatred. You will see mine, first.
Zabuza roared, as he leaped on the water.
Kitsune eyed the swordsman. Zabuza-san, why not make a truce? We both want revenge for Kisame's death, why not work together to achieve it? The man glanced at the hybrid.
TCH, for now, he said, after a short silence.
Very temporarily.
Thanks, the boy said, before straightening up.
Naruto imitated him. Amaterasu didn't move. Come and strike me down, if you can. Sakura.
As she saw her crush die before her, Sakura cried.
Please, Naruto-kun, wake up, wake up.
He didn't respond, his corpse staying lifeless.
Wake up.
It is useless, the freak said, as he pointed her with his hand's fingers. He is dead as you will soon be. Her eyes could only widen, as 5 bullets were shot at her. And she could only gasp when she saw Sasuke's body taking the attack instead of her own. The boy fell on the ground, next to her.
Sasuke-kun? Who else? The genin answered as he got up.
Strangely, his shirt had stopped the projectiles.
Damn, Chewbacca's seals are damn effective. Why did you do that? She asked. I don't know, he said. My body moved on it dash.
The skull flail smashed his head faster than the wind, in a sickening crack.
Sakura watched, horrified, as the Uchiha's corpse was ejected from the construction, and fell into the sea. One advice, never ever have any moment of inattention on a battlefield, the freak gloated. You were great, Sakura-chan. Way better than me. If you ever want someone to hear you, I am here. Sakura, I want you to be with me.
Anger and sadness overwhelmed Sakura's heart, making it burn with a lust for revenge.
Yes, a voice whispered. I can give you the power you need, let your anger consume you. Her eyes became red, fangs grew.
This is the end, the bastard declared, as he pointed his index at her head.
Farewell.
The bullet was shot, and stopped by a mix of blood and chakra.
6 tails formed on Sakura's back, and her body began to adopt the form of a demonic, incomplete monster.
Barely aware of her surroundings, she opened her mouth, unleashing a blast of power at a gasping Kimimaro, vaporizing him in an instant. The ray continued its course, destroying a large part of Wave's landscape.
Then, the possessed girl began to seek a new prey. The puppeteer, Chibaku. Chibaku was running for his life, as the bridge crumbled. Sasori and that chick, Haku, were following him.
Behind them, their enemy was pursuing at an incredible speed. Susanoo was expelling chakra from his feet, a technique that propelled him in the air. Rocks and bricks were floating at his side. Sasori suddenly stopped, rotated, and moved the Sandaime Kazekage.
Spikes of iron sand shot up, intending on impaling the masked ninja. Susanoo blinked, and the projectiles were repelled. A large rock then hit the human puppet, making it explode into shards. A furious Sasori prepared himself to use his flamethrower, but a flying chunk of the bridge was thrown at him, ejecting him from the unstable construction. Still propelled, Susanoo reached Haku, who tried to protect herself with a shield of ice.
The bastard punched it, went through it, and hit the girl in the belly, sending her after Sasori.
The masked man landed on his feet, and glared at Chibaku.
Instantly, an invisible hand seized the blonde, bringing him to Susanoo's fist. The puppeteer tried to protect himself with his arms, but they were broken on the impact, the Kyuubi's cloak saving his life. He flew in the air, and the invisible force drew him to his enemy, who landed a punch on his head, breaking his jaw. The process repeated on last time, and Susanoo knocked the blonde in the torso, shattering ribs. The next second, Chibaku crashed onto the sea. The Kyuubi's chakra vanished, and he began to sink, until someone grabbed him by the shirt and took him out of the water. "You look terrible, pervert," Naruto said. The blonde puppeteer wanted to say something nasty in response, but only succeeded in groaning. The girl put him on her back, and ran, as bricks were raining on them.
Sideways, Chibaku saw Zabuza and an orange sharkman fighting Amaterasu and losing.
The masked man looked like a dancer, gracefully sidestepping, fencing, outflanking, cutting through his opponent's skin as if it was butter. The shark was bleeding massively, and Zabuza was barely parrying Madara's ferocious attacks. "Seems that Kitsune and his partner are in trouble," Naruto said, as she rushed at their rescue.
"The shark is Kitsune? Man, is he a war-shark too? What will it be next time, a war-monkey form?" A war-dragon? It would be awesome. Sounds of explosions retired Chibaku from his fantasy. A flying Sasori was trying to incinerate a floating Susanoo, who deflected the fire nonchalantly.
The redhead landed next to Naruto, and they were soon joined by a bleeding Haku.
"He is too strong," the girl stated. "We can't even slow him down."
"He has damaged the bridge's foundations," Sasori noticed.
"It'll sink in the ocean within the next minutes."
He gritted his teeth. "Even weakened, he is stronger than us all."
"Oh yes, I am," Susanoo gloated, as he descended on the water.
"You cannot defeat us," Amaterasu added proudly, as he jumped to his counterpart's left side.
"Surrender, or we will kill you." "In your dreams," Zabuza growled.
Kitsune straightened, and the rest of the group prepared themselves to stand firm for their skin. "Then I will add your weapons to my collection," Amaterasu replied.
"You are all fools."
Susanoo shouted, putting his hands together.
You can't hope to.
The powerful noise of an explosion interrupted him. A ray of light vaporized a large part of the bridge and of waves, and everyone looked at its source. A monstrous red creature, covered with an incomplete skeleton, was roaring at the skies. The Kyuubi had emerged, and it was out for human blood.
That's it for this reading.
Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction.
Looking forward to having you on board again.